Here are the most intense combat stories on the Shawn Ryan Show. Please enjoy.
I've already been JMPI kitted out for a combat jump. Got the full pack. Got the 1950s weapons case dangling. And I was the first man in the stick. They gave us, told us the 30-second sign. We're all hooked up and ready to go. The jump master's got his arm up, getting ready to hit me in the back. And then we see shuffling, and I'm only one of 12 guys that I jump with every time. It never deviated, no change. That was my team. It didn't matter if it was Conus, O'Conus. Those were my guys, only 12. And a guy from the back shuffles his way to the front, and it's one of the escorts. He is unmistakable. You can't. I mean,
really?
You know.
Yeah.
And at first, it just didn't connect with me. It just, I just gave him a, hey, how you doing? And he just winked at me. As soon as that jump master's arm came up and the green light's getting ready to go off, no sooner than it hit and I felt his arm coming down, I feel something slap me on the side of the face, and it was the static line. And that man took off out of the aircraft. And when he did, it snapped my neck. And it pulled me out upside down, deployed my combat gear. Long story short, had a complete oscillation, and I just smacked the ground, and I woke up a month later. Career's over. And I'll tell you something else.
Do you mean you burned in?
Yeah.
Your chute didn't.
Oh, my chute.
What happened?
My chute deployed. But whenever I fell out of the aircraft, and I think maybe we were jumping from 800 feet, if I had to guess. That's what it looked like from the horizon. But whenever he hit me going out of the aircraft, and the static line went taut, and it snapped my neck, and I fell out of the craft. I'm not even sure how I fell out, but it deployed my lowering line on the way out. So whenever my canopy did open, it just started a complete oscillation.
Okay.
I remember looking down and seeing daylight, and just smack, and it was over.
You think that was an assassination attempt?
I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was. And the only reason I tell you that is because when my father died, not even a week after I buried that man, I'm at our new house at the beach. Nobody knew I'd been there. I hadn't even changed my driver's license over. I hadn't even told the VA that's where I'm living. Not even a week after that man was buried, I get a knock at the door. It's that same guy who cut me out of the door. Hands me a note. It said, thinking of you. He's like, hey, sorry about your loss, buddy. What would you do? And Dr. Greer asked me, he said, well, did you feel like they were trying to intimidate you or they're trying to hurt you? Absolutely not. If that was the case, I would have never seen it coming. To me, it just felt like somebody looking you dead in the eye and said, I can touch you anytime I want. And then everything started flooding back, and that's what led us to here. I wrote out that entire story to Dr. Greer.
You fell out, and it was a week after you buried your old man, you said? Or the day after? I'm sorry.
Whenever he showed up?
Yes.
That was a week after I buried my father at Rudy Maris Cemetery in Dublin, North Carolina. Nobody knew I was there. Nobody.
So this is 2021.
Yes.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And this happened, when was the accident? When was the assassination attempt?
2011, 2012.
Did you recognize him
I've got it written down everywhere. It's so hard to remember. That's when I got this.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just been fuzzy. And that's what led us to this. That scared me so damn bad that I had decided I wasn't suicidal. Please don't get me wrong. I was not depressed. I just felt like at that point that it's not about me. I've got my children. If something happens to them, it's my fault. So I figured if I quietly recuse myself, who's going to know better? What's it going to matter? My story's over. get to see my dad again, and hopefully save my kids from this bullshit. Because everything changes. It's one thing when you lose your brothers. It's one thing when you lose your family. But if you worried about losing your children, that's taking it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You know, just because we choose to be peaceful at this point in our lives does not mean that we forgot how to be violent. I'll take the whole damn world down to protect those kids. And I know you would do the same for yours.
In August of 11.
Extortion 17 happens, which again is the biggest loss in SEAL team history. So let's start there.
Kind of the way we talk about it is, where were you? Where were you when 9/11 happened?
Yeah.
Where were you when June 28th happened? And where were you when August 6th happened? I know exactly where I was. I was sitting in a movie theater with my wife sitting next to me, my shooting buddy's wife, and then my shooting buddy. We're all watching a movie, and we're probably 45 minutes into it, and phone goes off, and you're glued to these things. Can't miss a text message. Like, I mean, the addiction to your phone becomes a real thing. Like, you can't miss a text message. You can't miss a phone call, ever. And his phone goes off and mine does too, and we both crack him. And we both looked at each other at the same time. And he had got a text from somebody in the White House, a staffer, used to be a team guy. And he said, "Call me right now." And I had the exact same thing, the exact same time that said, "Call me right now," from a different guy. Okay. And he texts back, "What's up?" And he said, "Afghanistan, helo, and get to work." I looked right at my old lady, "Get up." Walked right out of that movie. They split and drove each other home, and I jumped in the car with him. We drove straight to work. And everybody was in there. Like, it was spreading fast. Nobody had any real details. I mean, we did, but it went into, it turned into a fucking circus. It was like I was reliving a movie that I'd already seen that I didn't want to know the ending of. I've been here before. Like, I already knew what this is. All the notifications, basically everybody's throwing on dress blues, they're driving out. Me and my wife are grabbing groceries and gallons of Starbucks and dropping off at Gold Star houses. Just really trying to take care of our own. It's one good thing about the Gold Star community is they know exactly what they need. So basically, notification team would go out, and then we would roll in behind and drop off gifts, groceries. We pick up kids from school. We do whatever we could. And that's the collective, that's everybody. It's just what you did. Trying to make sense of what had actually happened. There's just no good way to go about that. I mean, that loss is felt this fucking moment. Like, that didn't happen. How did this happen again? And you couldn't explain why. I mean, things happen in war. Things that you wish didn't happen. You wish it wasn't a reality. It's absolutely reality. It's another reality check. Doesn't matter how good those dudes were. You couldn't have picked a better... There wasn't a more capable fighting force on the fucking earth than the dudes who were on that helicopter. And it didn't matter. It did not matter. Gone in an instant. It's like, fuck. Like, how are you going to come back from that? And then selfishly, how are we going to take care of all these families? Like, what do we do now? It's like every foundation just dumped in, trying to support, trying to do whatever they could to... I mean, inside of that, we're trying to rebuild. Like, we're still fighting the GWAT. Like, we can't let this be our defining moment. We just can't. We've been through this thing before. Unfortunately, the CO at the time had been through this exact same thing. He was a Group 2 Commodore when Red Wings happened. He had been through this whole fucking thing. So, put a plan in action. We had to rebuild the force, had to take care of all the families, take care of all the kids. Me and Patsy started making memorial t-shirts within 12 hours. Just trying to raise money, just trying to do anything. That's what a lot of people don't realize is there's a gap. Like, if you're pronounced dead, your paycheck stops. There's a long gap before any kind of life insurance comes in or any kind of support. So the only thing that puts food on the table, the only thing that puts gas in the cars are foundations. Like people that are raising money. And we don't know how long that gap's going to be. Like now we've got big name foundations that really lend a helping hand, but it doesn't matter. To them, to that singular family, the whole world just came crashing down. It's over. Like it'll never fucking be okay now. It's like anything you can do to try to lighten that burden, you try to. That's making a memorial t-shirt, that's picking up the kids and having them make skateboards, whatever it might be. You have to do something. But I'll tell you what, that was a super dose of reality. Because doing a lot of shit in helos, and it's like, that's the reality. That is exactly what is going to happen. Like, there's nothing you can do for that. It doesn't matter. Like, you can't plan for that. You just can't. I mean, you can try to do things, but a helo gets shot down with all those people on board. There's no good scenario out of that. And it crippled us. We had to rebuild the force, and every team had to give up bodies. And that was the whole point of contention. Like people wanting to rebuild, people not wanting to rebuild. I don't want to go. I want to go. Just it was a circus there for a couple weeks. It was.
Do you want to describe a little bit more in detail how many lost, what happened?
Well, without getting many specifics, the weather was not in favor. It was a high illume night, and a force went out and got contacted and needed to launch a QRF, and they launched in that troop to be a QRF, and on final they got shot down. Everybody's in there, like you've got an amazing force, you've got the world's best sitting in the back of this flying school bus. It lands down, they shoot it out of the sky. It's you just can't plan for it. I mean, you just can't. It's 31 people gone, including some Afghan partner forces, but an entire troop of people.
Yeah.
It's just gone. And I mean, things that people don't think about, things that I know that haunt other individuals is, think about the guy who missed that deployment, had a shoulder surgery and wasn't there. Think about the guy who had to go home for a birth of his kid. You should have been there. Like, that's gonna weigh on that dude forever. And it is. I don't know, I just remember walking into the building, it being so fucking somber, just, you didn't know where to smile, like, you wanted to have fun at work, but you couldn't. Like, how dare you smile right now? It was one of those things, like, and it wasn't a forced, thing, it's just, it's what it was. I mean, we were in the trenches for a long fucking time, man. We just were, and it felt like it was so hard to get back out of it. We tried to rebuild, and we've got the force, and they're back, and they dumped every dude. They pulled guys from all the other teams and tried to rebuild that one troop, and they grabbed some fucking all-stars, man. They did. Like, they spared no expense. They grabbed some serious fucking talent, and they rebuilt. And they built a dynasty. Like, they built some fucking badass dudes.
I remember Mike. Mike was a badass. Like, Mike was, tough as nails. Definitely the type of guy you don't want to mess with. And I remember as soon as that first, mortar round popped up in the air, I heard Mike's voice change. And he yells over to me. He's like, "Take cover." And I was like, if Mike's telling me that, and I can hear it in his voice, this is serious. And so first mortar round comes up, hear it explode, not a direct hit. And then they just start popping these mortar rounds up in the air. And I'll tell you, Shawn, I don't think I've ever been as scared in my life, because it is like the movies, man. You can hear those things whistling through the air. And the difference, like when you get shot at, it happens so fast, you don't really have time to be scared, right? But with mortar rounds incoming, and you can hear those things whistling for 5-6 seconds in the air, the whole time you're thinking, is this it? I wonder if this is a direct hit, if this hits this house, we're done. And thankfully, these guys really didn't want it. I could tell they didn't want an extended fight. They kind of wanted to just see if they could hit us with the mortar rounds and then get the hell out of here, so we didn't pinpoint their location and kill them. But because I think they only launched like 4 or 5 mortar rounds. One of them, I do remember one of them though, hit on the west side of the house, probably like 60 yards from my window, and frag, flew up and through the window. And that was, pretty close. But I'm just glad that, they were off on their shots. But then our AOIC at the time called in Artie, and from I think from Habanilla, and that was pretty cool to hear the big guns start going off in the distance, and then the tree line that we thought we were taking the mortars from, started getting rocked, and the fight was over at that point. But that's a scary feeling, man. Not only hearing mortar rounds, whistle through the air and not knowing where they're going to hit, and you're taking small arms fire, but like when you're in a sniper overwatch or a situation like that, you're usually in one of the worst neighborhoods on planet Earth, and there's like 10 to 15 of you, and you're in somebody else's city, and you're constantly thinking, how many bad guys can they muster to send at us?
Yeah.
And when you know that you're probably not going to get extracted till nightfall, because nobody wants to risk the vehicles in the daylight, which we didn't always own. We usually own the night. That we could be in for it, for a while.
Yeah, it's like a feeling. I've been in a couple of similar situations, and it's like the feeling of helplessness. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You can't figure out where it's coming from. If you can, like it's the tree line, you can't.
Yeah.
There's no target to shoot. You're just gonna eat it, and hope it stops soon. You know, hope you don't eat it, and hope it stops soon. And it's.
We're chasing deck of card stuff, so Saddam and all of his minions. But then came home for like 2 weeks and then deployed again for our true second rotation. So now you're in October of 03 and Halloween night of 03. So pre-Saddam capture, we were on a hit in Fallujah. And 22 SAS, I was just laughing about this the other day with the 22 SAS guy, but SAS was working with us. The Brits had joined the fight now, and they had a contingent, a tier 1 asset in country, and they were doing targets, and we were doing targets basically all over the country. And we were in Fallujah this night, and they had a block and we had a block chasing some high value targets in Fallujah. And they ended up, drawing the short straw on the blocks, and they were manually breaching the gate of a house to get into the courtyard, and all hell broke loose. House full of bad guys. I mean, RPGs and machine guns lined up on the roof. Like it was bad timing. The Brits took some casualties in that initial engagement. We ended up covering their exfil of those casualties and withdrawal from that space from across the street. I was on the rooftop of a building across the street. We had Bradley's tanks in blocking positions. And rather than just go heavy and try to assault this house that was obviously heavily fortified and heavily armed and full of bad guys, we started shooting tow missiles from the Bradleys into this house. And we had a couple of little birds in support. And so a lot of 275 rocket, a lot of machine gun into this building. I think we shot 11 tow missiles into the building. Middle Eastern buildings are notoriously resilient, as a lot of us know. So, there's some holes in the fence. There was a lot of holes in the house. Every time they would shoot more rounds, it would be quiet for a minute, and then a bunch of, rounds would come out. It would erupt again, and that went on for some time. But eventually we got to the point where we had, shot all the tow missiles, and the little birds ran out of ammo, and we're like, all right, well, we got to go assault this house because that's what we do. So we did. There was a funny moment out front where we tried to send the dog in just to see if anybody was still up and moving around. And it was early on in the dog days. And the dog Teammate and I, my team, we drew the short straw and were the first ones to enter this compound. And so I'm standing behind my 2IC at the gate, and Mikey actually called for it. He's like, let's send the dog in and see what happens. And so one of the dog handlers sent the dog in. He went in the courtyard. We can't see him. A couple of minutes go by. He comes back out. Nothing. We're like, and Mikey's like, send him again. Dog goes again. A couple minutes go by. He comes out. Nothing. No barking. No, like, we don't hear anything. We're like, that's weird. Tried it one more time. Still nothing. I think we tried 3 times. Well, hindsight, what we found out was the dog was going into the courtyard. He was getting tangled up in all the tow missile wire that was laying on the ground. And they had never dealt with that. So the dog would get all tangled up in the wiring that was laying on the ground in the courtyard, and he would get confused and he would just come back out instead of going into the house, because they'd never dealt with it. So they'd never trained the dogs to deal with obstacles en route to make an entry into a building or whatever. I was never a dog guy, so forgive me, dog guys, if you get the point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so at that point, Mikey, like, leaned over my shoulder, and he was like, you got a flashbang? And I pulled one off his back, and he went, fuck it. And I threw the flashbang over his shoulder in the courtyard. We made entry. One of the teams ended up killing a guy that was still alive in the house. And then we cleared the first floor, started to go to the second floor, and there was a suspected IED on the landing on your way up to the second floor. Protocol was to get out of the building, so there's a code word that we used to get out of the building. So they called that code word thinking the building was rigged. Even then, we were paying attention, and it was before any of that had ever happened. So we exited out of the building, ended up clearing the building next door, going up to the roof, and there were still guys alive on the roof. And we ended up engaging. My team, we ended up on the roof of the building next door, ended up engaging those guys. And at the same time, the Brits had gotten back in the fight. And we're coming up the backside, and they were pissed. They'd lost a couple mates, so they were like, wall charge, grenade in courtyards, grenade in rooms. Like, they were full-blown. It doesn't matter who you are, you're dying. And, they made entry in the house behind us, came up onto the roof, and I see tack lights. So 22 SAS wasn't running nods back then, which is insane.
No shit.
No shit. Tack light, no nods.
Wow.
No nods, no lasers. Yeah, 2003. And so their wall charge, entry, frag, enter rooms. They end up in the house behind us. They come up. I see the tack light coming up the stairwell, and I'm yelling across the rooftops, Eagle, Eagle, Eagle. And I get an answer back, right, Eagle, Eagle. I'm like, cool, they know we're here. And I made a mistake. I go, hey, whatever you do, don't throw a frag. There's ordnance all over the roof. You know what's coming. The call that came back to me was, right, mate, frag out. Grenade comes out on the roof. Brad and I both hit the deck. Luckily, it didn't set off any of the RPGs or anything that were sitting up there. But yeah, so what ended up coming out of that was the SSE of that target after everybody was killed. They were all wearing like tracksuits, like somebody had, like out of a movie, like someone had given them clothes. In the house was nothing but like sleeping mats, some food and water, and ammo. And what it was the first foreign fighter target we ever experienced. So they were guys that had been brought in through what eventually became the rat lines coming from Syria into Iraq, through Western Iraq, and then into the cities. And so they were the first true foreigners that we ever encountered. And to my knowledge, they were the first ones that were encountered in Iraq. And that was a weird moment because it was early in the war. Like, we hadn't even caught Saddam yet. But it was a really good snapshot of things to come. And so, yeah, that was my second rotation. Like I said, invasion, surge, and then my second rotation. But it was a good indicator that things were about to change.
Damn. So your team was the one that discovered that was happening.
Yeah, like I said, to my knowledge, that's the first time that happened. And we knew it. Like, it was like, this is weird. Like, why are these foreigners coming from other countries, and why are they armed to the teeth, and what's their goal, what's their objective? But yeah, that was the first realization that people of similar beliefs are coming to where we are specifically to kill Americans that are in Iraq.
Damn.
I remember putting my first foot came out, and I'm looking at bin Laden's house, and I remember thinking, fuck it, I guess we'll start the war from here. And I knew damn well there's a wall, just because we trained so much. There's a door on the wall, northeast corner, which is off to my left. And so the breacher decided to go up and put a 7-foot charge of C6 on it. So now because we're hitting this side, they're somewhere in there, I think. we're going to go into the house this way, and we can go up with him. He blasted the door. It opened like a tin can, and there's a brick wall behind it. So on the wall, there's a wall, and the breacher said, "All right, failed breach. This is bad." He said, "No, this is good. That's a fake door. Nobody does that. He's in there." So then we know there's another door over here, which is the carport, which we know opens because the cars go in and out. And we didn't know what happened. We heard them saying -1 going around. But what they were saying was -1 going down. So we just gave them a courtesy, hey, we're going to blast the carport. And they said, don't blast it, we'll open it. And the door opened and the thumb came out with a glove that I recognized. And that now we're at a point in life where it doesn't matter why you're here, you just are.
Yeah.
I tell football teams that all the time. It doesn't matter why it's 2nd and 15. It just is. Time's kicking. Let's move. So we walk in. It didn't make sense to me why they're in there. I saw the air crew standing there. I saw American flags, but different gear. I remember thinking, who the fuck are these guys? Whatever. And so there's already a gunfight. Stuff's going on. Explosions. We go into the main house. There's guys going down the hallway. This is the first floor of Bin Laden's house, and we're backed into this room, and I'm like looking around for bombs. Like they're going to blow this house up. If anyone's going to martyr himself, it's Bin Laden. I don't see any, but I'm seeing guys knowing that they could blow up, but they're not. It's not affecting them. They're doing their jobs and being proud of them. Like this is just, you guys are fucking cool. And the guy next to me in the room, he whispered and he said, "Helicopter crashed." And I said, "What helicopter?" And I thought some of the birds behind us had crashed, but he said, "Bro, our helicopter crashed in the front yard. You walked right past it."
Holy shit.
That's like, okay, that makes sense. Let's take a break. So I'm watching guys do their jobs, even though this is an extremely high threat situation. And dudes are dealing with problems. But what I remember seeing, the guy just told me the helicopter crashed. And I'm like, what helicopter crashed? And I thought one of the other helos had been shot down. And he goes, "Bro, our helicopter crashed in the front yard. Like you walked right past it." And I remember just sort of trying to justify I'm like, well, I must have been looking this way because that's Bin Laden's house. But I'm watching dudes run from different rooms to grab kids that have been separated from their families to bring them back to their families so those kids would not be as afraid as they are right now. And I remember thinking, being proud of the guys, but then thinking that is what the good guys do.
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda's not doing that when they come to our house.
No.
You're going to shoot it out, they're going to cut people's heads off. We do that because we're the good guys. And I'm sure you've seen it in combat.
Yeah.
But now we're on the first floor, and then they breach to the second floor. The woman that found Bin Laden said, "I don't know what it looks like inside, but there will be a stairwell going to the second floor, and you will run into Khalid Bin Laden. And he's 20 years old. That's Bin Laden's son, and that is his last line of defense. He will be armed on the stairwell." And she was so badass. She said, here's the way she put it: "If you can ace him, you get a shot at the big guy." And that's a cool brief right there from a badass, So she was right. And it turns out she was 100% right on every single person in and out of that house. Everything.
Shit.
Nailed it. But we get to the stairwell, and it comes up, it comes back. So the stairs go this way, there's a little area, and then it comes this way. And Khalid was there, and he jumped behind a banister. And I'm at this point now, because I had the front row seat to the coolest mission in modern history. I'm just watching cool guys, right? And they're going up the stairs, and he jumps back, and I'm a certain amount of guys back. And normally in an urban setting, if we're fighting up, I will pull guys out. I only want a certain amount of guys on there just to avoid unnecessary deaths if he starts dropping shit on us, like grenades and whatnot, or takes a shot down the stairs. But I figure we're going to die anyway, so I want to see how this goes down. And I'm just standing there. I don't have a shot. And now we're back to being quiet. And it's dark. And the point man said something like, and I'm going to fuck this up, it was something like Khalid, Urfa Idek, Khalid Delta Rasha. Something like that, but it was basically come here, in two different languages that he knew Khalid spoke, which I think is incredible, because I would have thought he would have pinned it, try to get a shot off. And Khalid simply got confused, and he leaned over the thing and went, "What?"
No shit.
That is the coolest thing I'd ever seen in combat. How tactically savvy are you to think of doing that? Like, well, he doesn't know. We might be Pakistanis here to move him. He doesn't know. I'll just call him out. And he did. So he was armed, perfectly within his rules of engagement. We step around him. We go up to the second deck, the last set of stairs. And I moved from this point from like the eighth guy to the second guy because everyone else went to the right and to the left because you want to clear, obviously, the area before you move on. But now we're down to 2, and we're pointing at the last set of stairs. And above it, there was a curtain. It looked kind of like a shower curtain, but it was like a green olive drab type thing. And we can see there's sort of backlit. There's people moving. And we assumed those are the suicide bombers. But bin Laden's in there. And the guy in front of me took a shot before we got there. And they're moving around. And I'm the 2-man. And my job as the 2-man is to hold him and wait. His job is to simply look forward. Don't drop security, and I got you. And through effective communication, when it's your time to go, I will squeeze you. It's on. I'm just telling you through effective communication we have enough guys. But we don't have enough guys. We're out of guys. It's 2 of us. And I want 4 more. I'll take 2. But he starts saying, we got to go. Come on, we got to go. He doesn't know it's me. He knows it's one of his guys. And what he's saying is those are basically suggesting those are the suicide bombers. But if we go right now, we can beat them. And I remember taking a deep breath, and it was by no means bravery on my part. It was more of a, okay, we're going to blow up now, and I'm tired of thinking about it. Let's fucking get over with. So I get him to squeeze, and he goes up, and he moves the curtain, and there are 3 people standing there. He didn't have even enough time. He just jumped on them. How he doesn't have a Medal of Honor is beyond me. He jumped on the grenade so the guy behind him could get the shot.
Damn.
So and simply because he went this way, I turned this way. And standing 3 feet in front of me is Osama bin Laden, and he's got his hands on Amal, his wife's shoulders. And I don't know what he's doing. He's not surrendering. He's maneuvering somehow. His hands are on her, and I remember thinking, he's taller than I thought. He's skinnier than I thought.
So you knew it was him as soon as you turned the corner?
Yep. His beard is gray. He's not surrendering. He's got to have a suicide belt. So I shot him twice when he was standing up. I shot him again on the floor, and then I moved Amal out of the way. So I can hear bin Laden taking his last breath. When I shot him, he fell to the foot of the bed.
Where'd you shoot him?
I shot him in the face 3 times. I moved Amal, and his 2-year-old son is now standing there. And this is the humanity of everything. This kid has got nothing to do with this. I'm a father, and I picked him up, and I moved him to the back of the bed, and she'd been shot, and I turn around, and I kind of froze, and I'm okay. Other Navy SEALs are now coming in the room. A lot of guys are in there, and one of my guys came up to me, and he said, "Are you good?" And I said, "No. What are we supposed to do now?" And he said, "Now we find the computers. We do this every night, hundreds of times." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm back. Holy shit." And he said to me, "Yeah, you just killed Osama bin Laden. Your life just changed. Get to fucking work." And so we did. They started. We actually we do have pictures of bin Laden. It's actually my gloves in there, putting his head together for the picture, dumping water on him, and like it was. I think the pictures haven't been released because it's one of those things where you really don't need to know how justice looks when it's served. It just is.
So those pics on the internet?
No, they're fake.
Bullshit.
It's split from he split from here to here.
Okay.
I mean, he got hit 3 times with I'm shooting 77 grain hollow point at 3 feet.
Oh.
It's a devastator.
Yeah.
And so they're dressing him up. Guys are doing SSC, and I went down to the sensitive site exploitation. We're finding intel. I went down to the 2nd floor. I had 2 other dudes with me, and we're going through. Now we found these huge offices with I'm talking computers, hard drives, like the old school towers. We were pulling big kit bags from underneath the bed, and we're opening them. And I thought it was freeze dried steaks, and it's like, wow, these guys are in it for the long haul. And it's like, wait a minute, no, this is raw opium. They're trying to make money off this, and so we're finding all that shit. And we were finding so much stuff from pictures to hard drive. Like we're cracking those open, pulling the hard drives, CDs, papers, handwritten letters, and we're just shoving it into these. It was to the point where we wanted 32 minutes on the floor. I think we were there for 47, and now it's like, okay, come on, let's leave, let's get the fuck out of here. I went back upstairs. I helped 3 other SEALs carry bin Laden down all the stairs we just came up. And I remember yelling at guys, fuck them. We're leaving. Get out. We're figuring this out. Outside, I think the ground force commander coordinated a way for another bird to come in to get us. We're going to put him on our bird. The first team's going out on that. They're going to go refuel with another bird on a mountaintop. We went out with the body. We actually sat it down next to the lead sniper from the Captain Phillips raid and said, here's your guy. And he looked down and he goes, you got to be shitting me. I'm like, no, we got him. He goes, let's fucking leave. So they took off with them. We went around to the other, I think it's to the east side of the compound. We're calling in a 47, but we don't, like I said, we don't have our CCT guys. So we're calling it in and we're rusty.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing there's a guy on Twitter who was tweeting. He was live tweeting, why would they be doing helicopter operations on a Sunday or some weird shit? And I remember seeing him thinking, if we were in Iraq, I'd blast this dude because he's outside of a target with a phone. But we're in PAC. They have no fucking idea that we're here. So then we're calling this bird in, and I remember we're saying, hey, so we have to blow up the bird inside. We're going to leave it. We're blowing it up. But I asked someone, I was like, what was the time fuse on that thing? And they're like, well, I'm like, holy shit, abort. We had to actually call off the bird coming in to get us because we were going to blow it out of the sky. So they aborted and turned. Then the fucking thing blew up. I'm like, we almost just blew our own helicopter out of the sky. Then they came back in. We get on that thing and then we take off. And now we're leaving. Now on a mission where we're supposed to die, but now we're leaving. And if we can live for another 90 minutes, if we can cross the border to Afghanistan, we get to see our kids again. We get to live another 50 years. But they got to know we're here, and they can shoot us down, probably with an F-16 that we sold them, the Packies. But worrying about that is not going to stop it, so I'm not going to worry. So we're sitting there in this bird. I have the lead sniper from the Captain Phillips raid. There was a weird thing with jealousy when this sniper initiated the fire, because sometimes when people are so close to doing something, they get angry. And they were giving him a lot of shit talking about firing. And I remember saying to him at work after the Phillips raid, hey man, don't pay attention to that shit. You're a fucking hero. Don't you ever forget it. Take a Copenhagen from me. Take mine. You're a hero. And I would remind him that he was going through a really rough time. We're sitting on this bird flying out and I'm trying to absorb what the fuck just happened. And I see this Copenhagen come in front of my nods. And he said, take one of mine. Now you know what it feels like to be a fucking hero. Which is just insane. A dude next to me from the other squadron, Blue Squadron that was there, he's from New York, and he asked a question that every SEAL asked when they found out bin Laden was dead. He said, who got him? And I said, I think I did. And he said, on behalf of my family, thank you. So now it's deep, and we got to, can't worry about the shit. So we just start our watches, and so we're counting. We got to live the 90 minutes, but it's been 10 minutes. Now it's been 20 minutes. Now it's been 30 minutes. And now it's 40 minutes, 50 minutes.